Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Samala. Today I'm going to continue with punctuation. And today I'm going to focus on three important punctuation marks with which I've seen a lot of errors committed when people write on social media. And those are full stop, or otherwise called period, semicolon, and comma. So today's discussion will be a movement back and forth between correct usage as well as wrong usage. And it's like more or less a practical application of the theoretical or of the more theoretical presentation that I did last time about some basic punctuation marks. So today we are going to get into things that are a little bit more complicated or more complex, but they will be made easier because I will be using examples, sentences that I've taken from people, specific people online, but I've anonymized them. So you will not see anybody's name on any of those sentences. But for the most part, when it concerns, the comma and the semicolon, most of the sentences we'll be using as examples have been culled from people's post on social media and even a journal article, a scientific article published in a journal. Without further ado, I would like to start by sharing my screen. So let's start with the full stop. The full stop, like I said last time, is also used in abbreviations. But there is a lot of wrong use of the full stop or the period. In American English, it is called a period. And in British English, it is called a full stop. There is a lot of wrong usage of that when it comes to abbreviations or sometimes even acronyms, but let's leave out acronyms and talk only abbreviations that can be spelled out like one letter after the other. So take, for example, I see a lot of people write GCE with G dot, C dot, and E, then no dot. Or some will write G dot and then C and E, no dot at all. All of these usages are wrong if they are writing, if what they are writing here actually means General Certificate of Education, as it is used in Cameroon. We have in the Anglophone subsystem of education, we have the General Certificate of Education, ordinary level, also called O levels, and advanced level, also called A levels for high school. So what is the correct way to write this? You would either write GCE with a dot after every one of these letters because these are initials. G is an initial for general, C is an initial for certificate, and E is an initial for education. So you need to put, if you want to put full stops, if you want to put periods, you put them after all of these initials. So this one is correct because you have put, or we have put a full stop after every initial. And if you don't want to do it this way, you may want to write it this way. This is even the commonest way, or more and more people are using this method. The second method, you drop all the full stops and you just write capital C, capital G, capital C, and capital E, and this is correct. No full stop at all. So it's, for it to be correct, either there are full stops after every initial or there is no full stop at all. But once you start the full stops and you stop halfway, it is wrong. Another example. So now let's come to the second example. Here you take Doctor of Philosophy, which is the PhD, Philosophia Doctor, from Latin. I see a lot of people writing this PH, P small h, and dot, and then D nothing. This is wrong. So there are only two ways you can write this and it will be correct. Either you write as the Americans do it in American English, P, capital P small h, dot, and then D dot. This one is correct. Or you write it as most people write in UK English, in British English, and other varieties of English, PhD without any dot at all. If you must put the dot, then the first dot comes after the small h, and the second dot must be there after the D before it can be correct. World Health Organization If you write w.h.o and no dot, that is wrong. If you want it to be correct, you can only write it in this way. Either you are following the US style to say w.h.o, which will be correct, or you just say WHO and there is no dot, no period, no full stop. And this is the most common usage. The most common usage is WHO without any dot, without any full stop, without any period. Next. So if you take even the word, the United States of America, which is the name of a country, I see many people write things like this, U.S.A and no dot, which is wrong. Or U dot and then S and A, no dot, which is again wrong. So for the only way it can be correct, there are only two ways it can be correct. Either you follow the American style, because Americans would say US, U dot and S dot, or they say USA and all of that, they have dots, that is full stop, period, after U, after S and after A, and this is correct. Or if you want to go the UK English way or the British English way, then you write USA, all capitals, but no full stop, no period in between them. Same thing like if, to go back to the example of Cameroon, which I gave with the General Certificate of Education, the GCE, we also have a certificate in Cameroon called the First School Living Certificate. So, and people use this abbreviation a lot of times, and this is wrong. First School Living Certificate, if you have a full stop after F and S and none after L and C, it is wrong. Or if you have after F and then as soon as you choose to use full stops, you must use full stops after all these letters so that the correct one can only be F full stop, S full stop, L full stop, and C full stop. Okay, because all these are initials. This is more like the American style. Otherwise, drop all the dots, drop all the periods, drop all the full stops, and just write FSLC, First School Living Certificate. And finally, we come to this one. Even in French, the use of full stops in abbreviations follows nearly the same rules as in English, nearly the same, even if there are some slight differences. And I want to give this particular example because it's a big shame that we are carrying like one of the most elite, one of the most respected part of our army, of the Cameroonian army, actually carries their uniform, their khakis, their helmets, everything of DS with a wrong abbreviation on it. And Cameroon has some of the best linguists, some of the best professors of English language and the best professors of French. So, and I'm wondering why such things will be done with that consulting. People wouldn't know how to do it. Because actually we have what we call la garde présidentielle in Cameroon, known in English as the presidential guard. And everything of DS, whether their car, their uniform on their bodies, or their caps, their helmets, their t-shirts, their boats, you always find these initials on the GP, because most people even just call them GP, and even their camps, you hear about GP Meleng, GP this, or GP Obala. But the sad thing about this is that the abbreviation is actually written grammatically wrong, okay? Because they write G.P and no point after P, because actually in French there should be a point after the P. So the correct one would be GP, G point, P point. That's G point or dot or full stop and P full stop. That would be correct. Or GP and no dot at all. This one will be correct. Okay. So and I'm even wondering, I'm even suggesting, why even write it only in French as garde présidentielle and then abbreviate only GP, which is also garde présidentielle, and then no abbreviation for English in a bilingual country as our country is. And that's why I'm thinking, why not just write something like this? The issue, as it is called garde présidentielle, presidential guard, the abbreviation, the initials that should be carved on their uniform should normally be GP, a trade union, PG, which PG stands for Presidential Guard. So in that case, it will either be JP with dot after J and dot after P, and then also P and dot and G and dot, or this way, and I prefer it this way. So I think this is something that the National Commission for the Promotion of Bilingualism and Multiculturalism in Cameroon should actually look into. There should be a revision, a correction of this error on the gadgets, on everything that belongs to the presidential guard. It is actually wrong, written wrongly. It should be corrected and also made to be bilingual. And that's why I'm going to also say this point in French. Bon, bien que cette vidéo soit en anglais, je veux revenir sur cet aspect en français parce qu'il s'agit de l'un des aspects du bilinguisme du Cameroun, l'un des pays, des rares pays du monde qui est bilingue en anglais et en français. En fait, comme je disais, l'utilisation des points dans des abréviations est presque la même en français comme en anglais. C'est-à-dire, lorsqu'on écrit une abréviation telle que la garde présidentielle, qui est GP, G et P sont des initiales qui représentent respectivement garde et pour G et présidentielle pour P. Et bon, la règle linguistique grammaticale commande que, ou demande que, il faut un point après le G et un point après le P. Soit on le fait comme ça, soit il n'y a pas de point, pas du tout. Mais mettre un seul point et ne pas mettre le deuxième point pour signifier que le P aussi est une initiale, là, on est dans une erreur. OK? On est dans une erreur. Donc, cela veut dire que, comme nous le voyons chaque jour, les kakis, les uniformes, les casques, les chapeaux, les véhicules, tous les camps, tout ce qui relève de la garde présidentielle, presidential guard, porte une abréviation qui est mal écrite, qui est écrite avec une faute grammaticale. Et pour un pays comme le Cameroun, qui n'est pas seulement bilingue en anglais et en français, mais qui a aussi l'un des meilleurs professeurs en linguistique, que ce soit linguistique anglaise ou linguistique française ou linguistique générale, ou l'un des meilleurs professeurs de français ou des professeurs d'anglais, je parlais au niveau universitaire, hein. Je ne sais pas pourquoi on avait écrit GP sur la garde présidentielle sans consulter des experts pour éviter une telle erreur. Mais bon, il n'est jamais trop tard. Je crois qu'il est encore temps. Et c'est pour cela même que moi, je crois qu'il serait plus important et plus équilibré de parler des gardes présidentielles, presidential guard, et avoir comme abréviation, pas seulement GP qui est en français, mais GP, trait d'union, PG, which is PG stands for, ou PG représente presidential guard, OK? Et dans ce cas, on pouvait choisir, si on veut, si on aime trop les points, et moi je n'aime même pas les points là, et si on aime trop les points, pour mettre les points encore, on va mettre un point après le G, après le P et après le G. Mais sinon, ce que je crois serait mieux de l'avoir comme ça, ainsi que je l'ai ici, GP, trait d'union et PG, GP, point, trait d'union, PG, OK, Presidential Guard présidentiel. Et je crois que c'est une chose dont la Commission pour la promotion du bilinguisme et du multiculturalisme devrait s'en occuper, pour qu'on puisse corriger cette erreur et non pas seulement la corriger en français, mais faire en sorte que ce que porte cette unité très prestigieuse de notre armée soit aussi bilingue comme le pays est. Okay, so I'm going to go back to English for the next slide. Now we are talking about the wrong use of semicolons. I want to talk about the wrong use of semicolons. And I want to use some example sentences here which I've culled from people. This where the sentences that I've taken from people start coming into play today. So look at this sentence. The first of this sentence, all of them one, and this sentence was actually taken from a published paper, a published scientific paper, a published paper by someone who has a PhD, and published this paper talking about the skills of students in a bachelor's degree in an English program. And that paper actually, well, interestingly, actually highlights so many errors that students commit, and also the fact that the program is actually not professional as many people claim it is. But the funniest thing is that the paper itself has a lot of errors, And one just begins to wonder, but why would a paper that is based on highlighting errors and say, well, these errors should normally not be there, also have too many errors? I'm not a perfectionist anyway, so I'm not saying that it should not have at least even one error. It should have maybe one or two, but not that the paper itself should also have lots of errors on nearly every page of it. So, well, whatever the case, uh, what we are going to do here is simply this. Let's not mind a lot about where this comes from, but let's mind a lot about correcting the errors today. So there are two ways I think these errors will be corrected. And wherever you see me put the red color or this purple color is because there is something there that I think is an error. Some of them are actually serious or some are not very serious. Okay, but now the correct form for this sentence would be something like this. All of them, that is 100%, agreed the use of oral and writing skills was important in their jobs and ranked communication skills as priority with divergences of skills such as, well, although I put this here just because I wanted actually to remind you that, as I said last week, we don't use a semicolon to introduce a list. We use the colon. But in reality, it is almost not correct to use such as, and again, you interrupt the such as with a colon. When you use such as, the best thing is just to go straight to the thing because such as is also introducing a list. And in this case, it's introducing a list without using a punctuation mark. But if you must use, so I will talk about that shortly here, but at least just to make you know that instead of using this semicolon here, in the best case scenario, it was better to use a colon, not a semicolon, because we introduced lists using colons. So that's why I've used a colon here now after such as. But again, I tell you that actually when you use things like such as, oftentimes it's better not to put a colon again. It's good to go straight to listing the items on the list. So here now I've also tried to bring down, because I don't know why communication would be in capital, decision would be in capital, and decision making is not hyphenated, and then leadership in capital, but professionalism is not in capital, and self-management is not in capital, okay? So that is why I've corrected not only this point about not using a semicolon to introduce a list, but I've also corrected by bringing down this capital letter to a small letter and the one for skill, and then bringing down the capital letter of decision, and also hyphenating decision making as a compound noun, and then bringing down the one for leadership. But another possibility for this sentence, as I already said, would be, and that's the best option I'm recommending, to say of skills such as, and you go straight to the point without using the colon. So, and the rest of the corrections will remain as they have been drawn. Okay. Okay. Now, this is another example where there are a number of things to be corrected, and it's from the same source as above. They say the person writes, the pedagogic approach which was overtly presented as common practice were observed on all the course outlines as you see. And then again, this is like an attempt to introduce a list, which is not the correct way to introduce a list. But the whole of this sentence seems to have another bigger problem that needs to be corrected. But I do not want to go a lot into the details of the bigger problem that needs to be corrected, but I just, at least just let's go straight and think about the use of the colon versus the semicolon. And now we first of all know that it is wrong to use a semicolon to introduce a list. We use a semicolon to combine parts of a sentence, especially a dependent and an independent clause, or a dependent and an independent clause and a relative clause, and stuff like that. But or to use in a list, as I did the other time, when you are listing items and some of the items have commas within them. You can go to the other video and listen to that. So now let's come here. The first, I have three possibilities that I've suggested here. One would be the popular pedagogic approach, which was overtly presented as, so I use was here because so that was should be in agreement with approach on all the course outlines, as well as, so I thought the sentence would make more sense if it made said something like as well as lecture mode, class discussion, group work, tutorials, oral and presentations. Or We could also say if we, because we don't know actually if this sentence was intended to be plural or singular, to have approach as plural or singular, but assuming that it was to be plural, then we will have the popular pedagogic approaches. And in here now we will have where to go in agreement with approaches, and not a second where here to go with approaches. And then observe on all the course outlines, including, and this time around I will instead just use a comma here and say including, okay? I'll just use a comma here and say including lecture mode, or if you want to use a colon, you can put a colon after this including here, but I would prefer to go straight to it, blah, 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 blah to the end. Or the third option again, yeah, you would include, put a colon here to introduce the list here. And in this case, you remove the including and you remove the comma. Good. Now, this is another sentence. It says, however, the greatest importance lies with the educational practitioners who include the lecturers, university authorities, the ministry, small n, the ministry, small m again, small s, education, capital letter education. Yeah, so a good number of things to be corrected. But well, we will not go through all of them, because the main thing here is first you need to know that what has brought this sentence here is the wrong use of this semicolon to introduce a list. But because there are many other issues that have to straighten it, we will have to try to straighten or to make them straight, as many of them as possible. So the first option would be first. However, the greatest importance lies with the educational practitioners who include, okay, in this case, I will maintain the comma here, but I will say who include, because we can actually remove them and write from who include right up to Cameroon here. And the sentence will continue as the educational practitioners, as they can use the research findings to improve the future of the Cameroonian higher education, blah, 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 blah. And in this case, you can then write another sentence here to say who these practitioners actually are, and you then list them. Anyway, so now include lecturers, universities, Ministry of Higher Education. This is a proper noun. Ministry of Secondary Education, proper noun, capital M, capital S. And then education policy, because this is not a proper noun, small e, blah, blah, blah. And then as they can use research findings to blah, 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 blah. And then, and now you see, in the following ways, and actually this one was so correctly used because it's introducing a list of the ways that these people can use the findings to improve things. And then now the second possibility will be the same, okay, but this time around, after practitioners have removed the comma, who include, and then after include here, I've put a colon, because the correct way to introduce this list would be with a colon. But the problem too anyway is to note that with this colon here, then there will be it would be better even to use like a full stop here. Otherwise you have a colon and a colon, like two colons within the same sentence. Sometimes they will be problematic. And the best way would be maybe to use a full stop here. And again, it is even preferable that after include here, you should actually use, just go straight to the point and don't put in colon. In that case, if you go straight to the point and you don't put a colon, then this colon would just be fine here. But however, what I did is that I also broke down the sentence this time around into two sentences, so that the second sentence continues and you see has something that links it to the first, and then it actually has its colon introducing a list, and so that it becomes perfect, good, without any problem. And that's why at this point I use include with a colon, and then lecturers, university, blah, blah, blah. And you see that I've dropped there, because this there here and this there here, they are not very necessary. Even this there here, they are not very necessary. You just say include lecturers, university authorities, Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Secondary Education, and education policy makers in Cameroon, full stop. And now I bring in a new sentence to talk about what these people can do with the findings, or what, yeah. And so I give one word that will encompass, that will carry, that will represent all of these people, or all of these stakeholders, or all of these different parts or units that I've enumerated here, and I use the word stakeholders. So that's why I said these stakeholders, meaning the lecturers, the university authorities, the ministry, the two ministries, education policy makers, blah, blah, blah. So these stakeholders can use the research findings to improve the future of the Cameroonian higher education, or of the Cameroonian higher education system or higher education, yeah, in the following ways. So in this case, it becomes good, okay? Yeah, fine. Next, now we want to talk about the wrong use of commas, okay? For the wrong use of commas, again, I'm going to be using sentences that I've culled from different sources. This one again was culled from an article, a published research article. Such articles, if they were actually sent to a very serious journal, after the peer review, after experts must have given their opinion on it, perhaps for the most case, including recommendations for revisions and changes, either minor or major. If the paper is finally accepted, if the paper is not rejected, if the paper is finally accepted, then it will go through copy editing, it will go through proofreading before it goes to layout, and you find that nearly all of these errors will disappear. And you might find only one or two accidental errors. But when it is sent to a very unserious journal, the kind of journals that can accept the paper the same day that it is sent to them, yeah, so such things are bound to be present in this, sadly. So, and sometimes even the journal people handling even add their own errors to one's original paper. It's a sad thing, but it's true. Anyway, so coming back to this now, you see Uzo Juan and Martinez Flor, comma, and then 2006, comma, maintain that meaning in language is fundamentally, this is wrong. There is no good reason why this date should be bound off with this pair of commas called comma splices. It's completely wrong, because actually, according to writing protocol or conventions for scientific writing, for writing papers, when you mention a person's name, you bracket the year of the publication of the source that you're talking about here. And if you do that here, you don't have any reason to put a comma, neither here nor here, because you just bracket it and you go straight to what do they say? Because this also Juan and Martinez Flor are the subject of this sentence, okay? And we need to know where is the verb and where is the object, because the basic structure of a verb is subject plus verb plus object. Although some sentences don't actually have objects, they have only subjects and verbs, okay? And that's why the correct form for this sentence will now be Uzo, Juan, and Martinez Flor, so 2006, no comma at all, maintain that meaning in language is fundamentally functional. This is correct. Now, this is another sentence. This one culled from a post by a blogger / journalist on social media. And the person writes, the reality is that France had already chosen minute division, Jan division as areas where weapons from France via Gabon will be supplied to the Biafra. And this is wrong, because first, this comma, that's why you remember there's a post I put on Facebook the other day. I was asking who told people to put a comma after every dot, because there are some people like every dot in their paragraph or in their text has a comma after it. I wonder who told people to do that kind of thing. And this is one of those kind of examples or in persons. This comma here is not justified linguistically, grammatically. It is not, because it actually separates the verb from its subject, the subject from its verb, and then the object. And then the next thing is that you see minute and division. This is a proper noun. It refers to a specific division in Cameroon, an administrative setup which is specific to Cameroon. So it is supposed to be capital M and capital D, and then division as well. So this is why the correct one would be, the reality is that France had already chosen minute division, MG, capital D, and Jan division as areas where weapons from France via Gabon will be supplied to the Biafra. So the reality subject is verb, that what. As long as you cut that from here, you have cut, the object starts from that right to the very end of this sentence, okay? Or what you call the complement. So, and putting a comma here already means that you've separated the subject and verb on the one hand from the object or the complement on the other hand. Another case, The only difference between Nigerian government and that of Cameroon, you see, I've not touched anything here. I want to maintain the sentences as much as possible the way they are when I get there from the sources. Okay, is that what? Now you see a comma here, which is wrong. So that's why you see, while public funds are swallowed in Nigeria by animals, those of Cameroon are swallowed by government officials supervised by Kona. This is funny, isn't it? Well, so you note that the comma after that here is wrong. It's completely wrong. And that's why I note here in red that the subject and the verb on the one hand have been cut off from their object, just like in the previous example. So how do we correct this? We will have something like this. We'll remove the that. Once we remove the that, I don't want to go into the other things where the veracity and other things about the statement. Okay, let's just use it as we are as an example to learn. Because what I'm doing here is not to mock anybody. It's just because if we don't do this to use practical examples to apply with practical examples where people have gone wrong and then show how to be corrected, so that then people we will not have the material with which to learn, and we will speak a lot in theory and there will be nothing said in practice. So I hope you get the point here. And so kindly note, always verify if the comma you are introducing in your sentences, if it is cutting off part, maybe your subject from your verb, or the subject and the verb from the object, etc., etc. Although there can be exceptions, and we'll be seeing some of them in a little while. So now look at some correct uses of comma here after that. And here we will not say it has cut anything from anything because the commas are actually justified. They are correct to be where they are. Look at one example. In addition to that, Swan finds that on average, a man today will have half of the sperm his grandfather had. So this sentence actually is taken from The Guardian. The Guardian is a very popular newspaper in the UK, okay? So this comma here, you can remove all of this stuff. You can remove Swan finds that and even remove on average, and then remove this comma, and the sentence will read as in addition to that, or yeah, you will still maintain this one because you are adding something. This is like in addition, okay? In addition, comma. So you can also say in addition to that, comma, okay? So, and this comma here is justified, but you can say wipe out this one here and this one here, and you maintain just like in addition to that, a man today will have half of the sperm his grandfather had, okay? But he had to add Swan finds that, okay? Because this is the name of the author or the person who has carried out the experiment and brought out the findings. And then because again, the person is not saying that just in the statistic is not hanging, it has to be contextualized. So that's why they say on average, okay, relatively. On average, a man today will blah, 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 but you can actually remove these things from here and this sentence will still be correct. Having only one comma here, okay? All right, the next one is, it is clear that whether you like or not, or whether you like it or not, we can put whether you like it or not, or whether you like or not, Young Sports Academy will win this match. So this sentence has this comma here and this one after that, and they are correct in the sense that, yeah, of course, what we are trying to say is that it is clear that what? It is clear that Young Sports Academy will win this match, okay? But because we want to add some information here in the middle, which is not very necessary, which is not obligatory, and it's about whether you like it or not. So the fact is that Young Sports Academy will win whether you like it or you don't like it. So we can even put this whether you like it or not at the end here. We can still put a comma here and we put whether you like it or not. As well as we could also put it even at the beginning and say whether you like it or not, comma, it is clear that Young Sports Academy will win. So that's why these commas, these two commas here, otherwise called a pair of commas or comma splices, are important because they are bounding off. You're trying to separate the essentials of the sentence from what is just additional, something that can be removed at any moment without significantly changing the meaning of the sentence. Second case, or third case rather, it has been decided that despite the COVID-19 pandemic, our school will not close. Actually, what has been decided? It has been decided that what? That our school will not close. This is what has been decided. But now, because we want to add some context to it, why has this decision been taken? This decision has been taken because of the pandemic, but it is being taken in such a way that or it is being taken to mean that whether the pandemic is there or it is not there, the school has to go on. Okay, yeah. So it will say something like, it has been decided that despite the COVID-19 pandemic, our school will not close. And if you remove despite this, you will say that it has been decided that our school will not close. And so there will be no comma. Once you remove this from here, you will remove it together with the two commas. Finally, on this slide, I will share again a couple of sentences which are correct, but I will also show you how they could become wrong if you just decide that if you are somebody who is so fond of, when I say fond, I mean F-O-N-D. When we say somebody is fond of doing something, not fun as being funny, not F-U-N. If you are fond of putting a comma just after every dot in your sentence, and then you put dots in these two sentences, you will just spoil them. They will become incorrect. So, but now wherever you don't see the red, the sentence is correct. So let's read the correct ones. First, it is believed that Jesus resurrected after 3 days in the grave. What is it believed? It is believed that Jesus resurrected after 3 days in the grave. It is believed. So, is believed, the verb, it is believed, that what? Then it continues. You don't break it. But once you say it is believed that, because the people try to write the way they speak, that it is believed that Jesus, then you have spoiled the sentence. You've separated the subject and verb from the complement. Second sentence, Christians believe that Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. But once you say Christians believe that and you put a comma, what do they believe? Because Christians, subject, believe, verb, that what? The object is incomplete. So you have to remove the comma so that the object, which is that Jesus is the only begotten Son of God, will be correct and complete. Okay. Third example, it is believed that Muhammad was 25 years old when he first married, or when he married Khadija. Okay. If you say it is believed that and you put a comma, Muhammad was 25 years old when he first married, this sentence becomes wrong, because you cut off the subject and verb from the object. You have made the object incomplete. Same too with the last sentence. Muslims believe that Muhammad is their greatest prophet. And this sentence is correct. But if you come and you put a comma after that here, and you say Muslims believe that Muhammad is their greatest prophet, it becomes wrong, because you've separated the subject, which is Muslims, and believe, which is the verb, and the introductory word to the object, which is that. You've separated it from the others, and you make it completely wrong. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and if you still have any questions about punctuation, please write them in the comments, and I will be able to address them in another video. So my next video on punctuation will depend only on your request if you ask for clarifications. Otherwise, next time I'm going to go to another aspect of the English language. And please, if you are new here, if this is the first time you are watching, or if you have been watching for some time and you have not subscribed, make sure you click on the subscribe button. And you also click on the notification button to be notified whenever a new video is posted here. Take care and see you again.